Alright, this video is going to walk you through the Intro to CNC assignment, or manufacturing assignment number 2. So what we're going to be doing is actually using the CNC with a CAD file to actually cut something out. So we're going to make a nice little heart. You can paint it up and whatnot. I know it's a little bit after Valentine's Day, but hey, better late than never. So to start this off, what you guys are going to need to do is go on the assignment, and there's actually a template picture right here that you can use. So we're just going to right click on that and save the picture because we're going to use this for our CAD file, and we're going to trace this. So let's head over to Onshape, and you're going to create a new document. And this is going to be your first name, last name, and this is going to be our Intro to CNC. So we're going to do a little bit of CAD with this, learn a couple new things, and then a lot of this is going to be spent with CAM, which is something different. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So first thing we need is, let's go ahead and get rid of this assembly, and let's rename this our heart. And we need to get that heart picture in here because that's going to be our template. So we'll go to Import, get our heart, open. It doesn't show up on our sketch or anything, but we do notice that it is down here. Alright, so to make sure that we have the right size for our heart, what we're going to do is go ahead and create a sketch here, and I'm going to make a center point rectangle that is 4 inches by 4 inches. And the reason for this is just going to be the size that we're going to use for our heart. So 4 inches by 4 inches, when we actually cut it out, that's going to be about the size that we use. Alright, so we're going to do another sketch, and make sure we're sketching on the plane. Don't sketch on the shape here, but let's go ahead and sketch on our front plane. And if we go over to Insert Image, here's our heart right here. And we see that it says Draw Image Rectangle. Well, perfect. We have one. So we'll just click and drag it out here. And that's why we did that square. It just made it really nice and easy to create that heart. So that sketch number 2 is just our heart that we're going to use to trace. So let's get one more sketch, and we're going to sketch on the front plane again. And what we're going to use for this is one that a sketch tool that we haven't used before, and that's the Bezier. So it's French name, so Bezier looks like Bezier, but it's Bezier. And what this does is create these smooth curves that we can use. So the first one I'm going to click right there on that point in the heart. And the way that we're going to do this, it kind of like the spline, where it doesn't have to be perfect at first, and we're going to drag it out later. So I've clicked there. So I know it doesn't look even close to correct, but we're going to drag them out later. And then my final point is going to be locked onto the center right here. And we'll just double click, and double click finishes it off. So if you just click once, it'll continue. So you have to double click on that final point, and that will create it. So now I'll hit Escape, so my Bezier is no longer selected. And the nice thing about the Bezier tool is it creates these little handles. So all I have to do is just move these around until I get my heart shape. I'm going to get it as close as possible just so it looks good when we actually cut it. There we go, that looks pretty good. Now, before we finish our sketch, we need to do the other side. And I could go ahead and create another Bezier curve and redo the whole thing, but that's a lot of work. So what we're going to do is use Mirror. And Mirror will let you flip something across an axis line. So we'll click on Mirror, and we see the first thing it wants is a mirror line. So right here, that central point, right? So we have this plane. We're just going to use that. So we'll click on that. And then select entities to be mirrored. That's our heart over here. Just click on that, and we see that it automatically finishes everything off for us. And we'll go ahead and finish our sketch. And it's hard to see everything right now, so I'm going to hide these first two. And there's our heart. So we can see that it's filled in, so it's good to go. So if it's not actually an enclosed face, you might have to go in and add some lines or something to close that off, but we have our heart. So we're just going to extrude this 0.25. So 0.25 inches. And this is what we're actually going to be cutting out. So we'll have this heart shape right? We're going to just cut it out of some plywood. All right, so that's the part where we do CAD. So CAD is our computer-aided drawing or drafting, right? So we have everything drawn out, but now it's time to do something new, and that is using CAM. So CAD is when we're drawing. CAM is computer-aided manufacturing. Okay, and what we're going to do here is create all of our files and everything that we need for our CNC. And to do that, we're going to need to use an application called Kiri Moto. Okay, but you guys don't have that installed yet, so what we're going to do is go to the App Store. And the App Store is full of different programs and extensions that you can use to make Onshape and CAD better, to do different things. So you have simulation tools, all kinds of different things. But the one that we're going to do is Kiri Moto. So go and type in Kiri Moto. And come on. There we go. And we're going to click on it. It's free, so you don't have to do anything. So for me, I already have there. You'll have to hit subscribe. So you'll just click subscribe. That should load it. Should say integrated. Everything should be good. You probably have to, reload your Onshape. So if I come back here, I can just refresh. I've already installed it, so it's a little bit different for me. But for you, you'll have to install it. You'll know that you did it right when you click on the little plus here, and under applications you can see it says Kiri Moto. Right, so we're going to go and click on that and add our Kiri Moto server, and this is where we're going to do CAM. So CAM, like I said, is computer aided manufacturing, and what we do in CAM is we create our files and slice them up, kind of like when we use Cura for 3D printing, and this is going to create our actual file that we can actually cut out, which looks like didn't want to open Kiri Moto. Let's give that another try. There we go. Okay. So probably for you, it might have put in the heart. If not, great. But I'll show you the steps to get all that there. So this is Kiri Moto, and we have a couple things to do first before we really dig into it, and that is a couple things in our setup for preferences. So this will just make your life easier. If we're over on Onshape, we check mouse, right? Because that's going to use the same mouse controls that Onshape uses. So that's just going to make it a little bit easier to move around and whatnot. Another thing we need to do is make sure that we are in inches. Inches is going to make sure that our models and everything are the correct size. Okay, so inches, and make sure mouse Onshape is checked there. Okay. All right, so the next thing we need to do is do our setup for our machine. So we're going to come over here to our machine setup, and we can actually do printing, 3D printing, or laser cutting using Kiri Moto, but we're going to be just using it for CNC. So go and click on CNC, and then we're going to do any generic gerbil. Okay. And then you're going to have to change around these sizes here. So let me go back to my M700 because that has all the correct setup and size and everything. And what you're going to do is go ahead and type in M700. Your volume X is going to be 22 inches. Your volume Y is going to be 29 inches. And your volume Z is going to be 15 inches. So you can just type those in. Spindle speed is 10,000 RPM. That's the max speed of our CNC spindle. That's that part that spins around. We want to strip the comments, check token spacer. Those should already be checked, but just double check. And then under file extension, make sure that says you're going to type in TAP. So our CNC machine uses a tap file, TAP, so go ahead and type in TAP. Now it should get everything there, so then we can just click Save, and we should have our setup there. So if we come over to File and Import, let's go and get our heart, plop it in there. Now, that's obviously not how we're going to cut this, so we'll need to flatten it. So if we come over to Tools and Rotate, not the Y-axis, but on our X-axis, yeah, we're just going to rotate this until it is flat. So we want to make sure that it's perfectly flat, right there, and that it's touching the bed. Perfect. All right. So the next thing we need to set up is our tools. So the tool is actually going to be the size for the mill bit. Now we don't have to do this when 3D printing because it only has the one extruder head it uses. But with our CNC, we can put in a lot of different tools, right? Different shapes, different sizes, all kinds of different things. So what we're going to be doing is creating a 1/4 inch end mill bit. Okay, and that's what's actually loaded in the machine for this. So if we hit the plus, right, it says new. So what you're going to do is go ahead and change that, and I'm going to go back here, and you're just going to enter these values. So the name is end 1/4 inch. This is an end mill bit. That just means that it's flat on the front, whereas a ball would be rounded and a taper is angled. This is just flat. Right, so this is tool number 1. It's not metric. Diameter is 0.25 and 1 inch length of the shaft. The flute, that's the actual kind of grooves that do the cutting. Right, diameter is 0.25, length is 1 inch, and we don't have any taper, so then we'll hit save. And what that does is saves this tool so you can use this. All right, so we're still setting everything up. We have a couple other things that we need to do, and let's set up everything over here on the side. So I'm just going to click on these, just make sure your values are all the same. So tabs, everything's 0.197. Stock, we're just going to do 000. Everything's unchecked because we're not going to use stock. Limits, this is important. So limits is going to actually control how fast everything goes. So if we don't set these limits, it's going to go super fast and going to break things, especially if it makes a mistake. So what we're going to do is make sure our Z anchor is on the top. All of our offsets are 0. Clearance is 0.25. And then Z and XY feet are both going to be 20. That's inches per minute, right? We don't want it to go zooming around and break itself. So this is just putting a limit on the speed so it doesn't go too fast. Output, just check ease down in tool init. You don't need to know what those do, just check them. Origin, we're going to check origin top and origin center. And then our offsets, all that does is sets the origin to the center, just makes it easier setting up. Expert, we don't have anything in profile. We can actually save this, so you don't have to keep changing this every single time. So go ahead and give it a name. I called mine CNC, hit save, and what it'll do is save all these values so you never have to reset this, so it'll keep them saved for future use. All right, 3 minutes. Let's see if we can finish this. So that should be all of our setup. The way that we actually make this do work is we actually have to add different operations. So with 3D printer, right, we just print the stuff from nothing, but here we have to actually cut stuff up. There's all kinds of different things like outlet, contour, pocket, drill. The one we're going to use is rough. So click rough, and then what we're going to do is make sure that we have our end 1/4 inch. Okay, and keep these values, so just check your values. We're going to change the spindle to 10,000. Feed rate, plunge rate are both going to be 5. Step down, 0.079. Step over, 0.4. Leave stock is at 0. All right, so that's all of our values. You can kind of pause and go back if you need to set those. But let's go ahead and see how this looks. So if we go over to start, this is where we actually slice it up, just like we do when we are doing 3D printing. So we'll hit slice, and then we see that we have these paths. And that's actually where the tool is going to cut. And if we go to our animate, you can actually see what it's going to do. So there's our little tool bit. So it's actually going to go through, around and around, cutting through our piece of wood that we just have down there until it cuts out our heart shape. All right. So we can also preview it, but we don't need to do that. So the last thing we need to do is export. So we'll hit export. And we're going to give this a name. So instead of just part 1, give it a name, your first, last, and heart. Okay, so it tells us our time, 19 minutes. We're going to speed that up a little bit, no worries. We'll just speed it up on the machine. And then we're going to download it. And it should give you a tap file. Okay, that's what we typed in when we did the setup. So tap is what we're looking for, and we can actually see our file sitting here. Okay, you're going to put that on the thumb drive for the CNC, and then follow the instructions that I give you in class to actually cut this out. So that's how you get everything set up in CAM for CNC machining.